So if you're someone out there who wants to rotate exceptionally well going through the golf ball, you need to copy this right arm move and this right arm angle you see all the best players possess going through impact, and that is that bent right arm. If you can keep that right arm bent going at impact slightly through it, you will be rotating nicely. It forces the body to rotate. It also forces the body to stay in posture. So that's whether you're doing that right arm to the amount, let's say, a Joaquin Niemann doing, or to the slight amount Tiger Woods does. Even just the slightest little bit going in there will make you rotate so much better going through the golf ball. So this is absolutely key. If you don't do this, you're not going to rotate. We're going to talk about some great drills at the end of this video. But before we do that as well, we need to get into things you need in your golf swing to be able to do it. So many golfers know that they need to keep their right arm bent. They try to do all the drills in the world to keep it bent, but they can't get there. That's because there are things in your golf swing that are stopping you from doing it, which we're going to dive into. But where do we see golfers normally? We see golfers extending their right arm coming into the ball, straightening it. And there is nothing that will stop your rotation faster than doing that. Because when you straighten that right arm coming into the golf ball, so making way for that impact, two things will happen. One, your swing height is going to plummet more into the earth. So if you are doing a movement like this, straighten that right arm, that makes the swing more into the ground, you will hit the ground fat. So a lot of players hit fat shots. If I straighten that right arm out early, you have to stand up then to get the club out the ground. So if you're trying to straighten that right arm, you've got to stand up to be able to hit the golf ball somewhat solidly, like that. I straightened the right arm, I stood up, I somewhat hit good contact, but it was not, again, that powerful of a shot. But if I stayed down and straightened the right arm, I fat the golf ball straight away, and my rotation immediately comes to a screeching halt, because I won't be able to rotate if I'm straightening this right arm early. If I rotate at the same time, again, I'm just going to fat it because I'm going to stay in my posture. That club's going to diverge massively outside the ball line. I'm going to hosel it. One of the big things that makes players hosel the golf ball, to hit the shank, is right arm straightened out, pushes the club more outside of the ball line also. Terrible. A lot of players try to do this to gain flash speed, to really wrap those hands over. We know in the golf swing now, via all the information we've got from force plates, from, of course, all the technology out there, is the three main power producers in the golf swing: your lateral movement, your rotation, and your vertical. Actually, they're in reverse order. Your lateral being the slowest, still a fast one, rotation being the second, rotational torquing, and vertical force being the fastest. Flash speed doesn't come into that. That's where it does create some speed, some flash speed. You would have to straighten the right arm to do that, but it nowhere near comes close to any of those other forces which are produced by the body. Rotational torquing being the one, so torque being that twist, that turn, is the one that gains you, of course, distance, but also control over this club face. You need that right arm bent to be able to achieve that. You will become so much more consistent when you get that into your swing, rather than prioritizing that big flash speed. So your rotation will stall out, and you'll start to early extend, and you'll have all that plethora of different horrible strikes. Not good. So let's talk about exactly how to get this right arm bent. So there are three things, three keys you need to be able to keep this right arm bent. It is not as simple as just trying to keep it bent there. You need your swing in the environment to be able to make it work. So number one, you need a square club face in your golf swing. So if your club face isn't square, let's say it's open. So open to my spine angle here and open to the swing arc. If my club face is open and it remains open into the golf swing, into impact area, I have to have my body rotation stall down. I have to fire my right arm through that shot to early release it to square the club face up. I can't keep my right arm bent from there. So that's where, even if I have a closed club face pointing down towards the ground, this is so many of you strong grippers out there. So if that club face is really closed, a lot of people try to do this, have that club face ultra shut because they see Dustin Johnson do it, and Dustin Johnson rotates. Great. Dustin Johnson was in the thumbnail. He keeps that right arm nicely bent. What does Dustin Johnson do that you don't do? Rotate at a very fast speed. Dustin Johnson, you know, can swing it mid 120s with his driver, probably crank it more than that if he tried. And that club head speed is what you need to rotate, to square up this really strong face, to create a lot and a lot of shaft lean. Shaft lean squares up that face. But being an average golfer, even myself, a professional golfer, I would never be able to make that matchup work. So that is where I don't have the speed for it. I don't swing my driver as fast as Dustin Johnson or retrospectively across the clubs. So that's where my body isn't going to instinctively rotate to square the face via lots of shaft lean. It is instead going to stand up to be able to raise the hands up to be able to square the face via that. The more you raise the hands up, the more the face points right. The club face is closed, you've got to stand up to be able to do that. We see that with players who have too closed of a club face. What happens? They will not be able to keep their right arm nicely bent because of it. So, square club face, make it simple, nice. Neutral grip would be great for pretty much everyone out there. Nice neutral grip. Some players can make slightly strong work, some players can make slightly weak work, which is what I do, but neutral is great. So that's where when we get shaft parallel to ground, we have the club face matching the spine angle. Always I want to see players get that club face square in the takeaway. It's normally where players get it wrong. And then from there, that club face will nicely stay square if we don't have any funny business. And if that club face is square to the arc, we can nicely stay in our posture, and that's going to be keeping that right arm bent as we turn through. So, little drill here, just to make sure you're square. Just get to that checkpoint, making sure we're at shaft parallel, club face is matching the spine angle. Nice little bit of hands in, fist distance from the right leg, club out with a little kind of thumbs up. Stop in that position, club face is going to be square with a normal grip. And then turn nicely through. And absolutely, you need that club face square. Number two, a shallow shaft. This is the second key. You need that club shaft to at least be shallowing a little bit. So that's where if golfers are doing the opposite, steepening the shaft, vertical, they're not going to be able to keep that right arm bent coming through the shot. Because if they do, they're going to stay in posture and turn. Look what happened to the club. It tumbled way out in front of me. You're going to be digging down to the core of the earth. So what we need to do, we need to have that shaft, the center of mass of the golf club, which is right underneath the head there. The wind isn't going to blow it off my finger. There we go. Center of mass of the golf club, pitching behind from where it was at the top of the swing. That's where you can do it a little bit. You can do a lot. That is shallowing. Every little bit helps. So that's where if I'm shallowing it and then turn, you can see I can then get onto the golf ball with a nice bent right arm. Nice rotation. Club path is going to be nicely maintained. So that's why shallowing is in there so we can keep the club traveling nicely with rotation. So, good little thing to do here, just to practice a little bit of shallowness. Again, I've got videos on all these different topics on the channel. It's just get an alignment stick, put it up the lead hand side, and then as we get up to the top of the swing, it's going to be pointing behind you, point it in front, just get that stick pointed in front to give you the sensation, and then turn through. That is going to be a great, simple shallowing drill to really help you get the feeling of the center of mass pitching behind. And then getting that feel, again, there's multiple things you can do shallow it. I've got a whole course, complete guide to shallowing the golf club in the downswing. So link into that in the description. So all different ways you can shallow it and get into your swing, but that's going to help you keep that right arm bent going through the golf ball. Even be a little bit or a lot, you'll be able to do it easier with a shallow shaft. So third one here, this is a movement pattern of the body going into impact. So that's where we need that trail shoulder to be slightly lowering as we go into the shot. Again, we don't need like Joaquin Niemann extent like here. That'll damage and pretty much ruin all your backs. That's where we won't be able to do it unless we're him. If we're not doing it already, most likely we won't do it to that extent. So that's where if we just have a little bit of that trail shoulder drop down, a little bit of trail side bend, get it lower, that's going to force that right arm to stay bent. We need that in there because if you're coming in the downswing way too vertical, that is why you will have that trail arm struggle to be bent. That's why it's going to straighten, because if you are too vertical with that right shoulder, you have to straighten it coming into the shot. If you try to keep it bent from there, you'll just top it. But here's the good thing about this. Just trying to keep that right arm bent will make you getting a little bit more trail side bend, which is great. So that's why we see some players have a ton and some players have a little bit. That's why we'll see like Dustin Johnson have a lot more trail arm or right arm being bent at impact than Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods is a player who only has the slightest shallowing move, stays quite neutral in the downswing, and when we don't have that much shallowing, we won't be able to get into that crazy rotated position. The more he rotates with that slightly, ever so slightly shallow shaft, the club's going to tumble out in front of him. So that means the trail shoulder for him has to stay higher coming into shot, but he still lowers it a little bit, even with his fused spine. That's where Dustin Johnson, of course, as we know, lots of shallowing, gets that ton of trail side bend. So you need to have that lower a little bit. That's a great feel for a lot of people, to have that trail shoulder getting on top of the golf ball at impact. Then that's going to make it way easier to keep that trail arm, the right arm, at that nice angle we want, nice and bent. So guys, let's get into the 3 drills to do for this to keep that trail arm bent. They all target in a slightly different way, which is why one of these is going to be great for absolutely everyone. You're all going to find a good one from these 3 drills. But if you want to expand more into more reasons to why you might not be getting your trail arm nicely bent, why you not be turning through the golf ball well, why you might be early extending, I've got a course called the Fixing Your Early Extension Masterclass. It's linked in that description. It is the most in-depth course on the entire internet on early extension and how to fix it for your golf swing, all the things that cause it and all the things you need to do individually to be able to fix it. Again, there's a link in the description that takes you straight to that. So, okay, number 1, this is with your right arm only. So take that left arm off and just grip it with your right. So if you're going to hit the golf ball now somewhat okay, you have to keep that right arm bent. It has to happen, because if you start to straighten that right arm coming into the ball, you're just going to straight away chunk it. So that's where these little kind of half swings just with your right arm will force you to stay in that posture. So this is where, again, there is not 2 hands on it, so it's not replicating the golf swing exactly, but it's isolating what you need to do, just like how a bodybuilder in a gym wants to do bicep curls, to isolate their bicep, to build and tear those bicep muscles so they can build it up stronger. It's the same thing with the golf swing. If we really want to make the most gains in a certain area, if we isolate that certain movement, we're going to have better gains with it, because your brain is purely focusing on that area. So there we go, just nice contact. If I am hitting the ball and I'm not fatting it, I know that I am going to be keeping that right arm more bent. So there we go. Again, one more for good measure, where I'm just straightening that right arm, look at the difference and strike straight away. It's going to be really challenging for a lot of you, but a challenging drill is exactly what you want. You want a drill to be hard. If it's not hard, it's not really worth doing for you. So drill number 2, and that is the bent right arm drill. Of course, it's about bent right arm. That's the name of this drill. So ultimately what this is, you could almost call this the Tommy Fleetwood drill as well. So again, we can do this half swing, we can do it 3/4, we can do it full. Our main goal here is hitting the ball and keeping the right arm bent all the way through to the finish. So even at the finish here, we want this right arm being nicely bent there. Give you a very Tommy Fleetwood looking finish. So I'm just going to hit a half swing here, keep the right arm bent all the way through to the finish. So if I'm in this finish position with that right arm bent, there is no way that I could have straightened it and then rebend it, unless I'm really decelerating. So that is where it forces you just from that finish position to get where you want to, because that's the hardest thing, of course. This is a move through the golf ball, the fastest point of the golf swing. So that's why trying to isolate this via conscious thought going through the golf ball is going to be impossible. It's too quick for the conscious brain to be able to register. So that is where, if we get in that finish position, right arm bent, then we know it's going to be bent going through the golf ball. We know it. So, okay, that is drill number 2. If you get that feeling in there, you could also go fuller. Again, one of the reasons why Tommy Fleetwood has his full follow through the way he does. You know that your right arm will be bent, because it gets you where you want to go through impact. Okay, 3rd drill. This is a good one. This is one I talked about not so long ago on the channel. And this is about gripping the club super low down. So you can see with my left hand, my glove hand, it is right down by the end of the grip there. And then with my right hand, you can see my thumb is pretty much on the steel of the shaft. Now, why this helps keeping your right arm bent, gets you a little bit lower at setup, absolutely. That's why I recommend a wider stance when you do this, just so it lowers you down a little bit. And then if I am going to straighten my trail arm, my body, of course, is standing up and I will not make contact with the golf ball. So the only way for me to make contact with the golf ball is for my body to instinctively stay down, which means the trail arm is going to be bent. So this is going to give you a great repetition, just like so. Again, it's a little bit shorter of a swing. The swing looks a little bit different, absolutely. A little bit more compact. But that's the thing, you're gripping it so low down. This is purely giving you the repetition of moving through the golf ball with that trail arm bent, which I love drills that get you doing the movement without you trying to do it. That's exactly what this one does. This is a great anti-early extension drill, because again, if you stand up, the club's going to raise off the ground, you're going to miss the golf ball or top it. So again, just making contact with a shot. Awesome. Now, really important one to know that the ball's going to go shorter. I had, when I did this video, or a video about this drill last, I had a comment from someone saying, you know, this drill isn't good because the ball's going way shorter. Of course it is. You're gripping the club down here. You're turning, let's say, my 8-iron into a pitching wedge, maybe even a sand wedge. I'm gripping down on it that low. So that's where you're going to hit the ball short when you do this drill. It's just you're shortening the club a crazy amount. It does not take a scientist to be able to figure that out. But that is where some drills you're going to be hitting the ball not ideal when you do the drill. Drills don't make you hit the ball perfectly. It gets you doing the movement you're trying to get into your swing, which this absolutely will. So let's hit another one. Trail arm has to stay bent to get down onto that golf ball from gripping it so low. So absolutely, this is where a lot of you will be saying, okay, those are great, the drills are good, but what do I do on the golf course to be able to get that into my swing? And this is where, go on, if you're regular watchers of the channel, you're gonna know what my answer to that is. Practice a lot. So that's where the only way we successfully get something into our swing on the golf course is via repetition. So that's where if we do a ton of the drills, we're going to be able to get the repetition of keeping that right arm more bent. Our body is only going to do, in a pressure-filled scenario, like being out on the golf course, what we're most used to doing. So if you've had 20 odd years of straightening up that trail arm, 2 weeks of practice of keeping that right arm bent doing drills is going to do zero to you to change that. That's why you've got to do a ton more. So that's where if you make sure that your practice is absolutely doing the drills, let's say the right arm being bent all the way to the finish drill, and you make that the entirety of your practice session with all clubs, then if you do that for half a year, if you're someone who's straightened the right arm for as long as I said, you may be able to then start to get it into your golf swing on the golf course. So that is where swing thoughts help you. That's why that bent right arm all the way to the finish could be a great one. Absolutely. But it's ultimately not going to change you long term. You've only going to change it long term once you've got it in that back of the brain, in the subconscious mind. Only way to do that is via repetitions. So that's where I'd love to say, think this and it's going to automatically get in there. It won't. But if you're practicing, keeping that right arm bent, it will force you to rotate more and stay in your posture. And then it's about repeating the process, getting more reps in, practice, practice, practice. And that's how you're going to get into your swing. So if you enjoyed this video, click that like button if you want more golf instruction, just like this. Hit the subscribe button, hit a bell button too to be notified every time I put out a video.